Finovate showcases cutting-edge banking and financial technology through a global conference series featuring short-form demos and thought leadership. Now, the conversation continues on the Finovate podcast.
Welcome to the Finovate podcast. We are continuing our profiles of the Finovate Europe Best of Show winners. Today, I'm talking to Sandipan Chakraborty, CEO of Sonect, one of the companies whose demo won that coveted prize in Berlin back in February. Sandipan, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, Greg, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So for people who haven't seen your demo video or who weren't able to be with us in Berlin, can you start with just a quick intro on Sonect, what you guys are and what you're doing?
Sure. So Sonect brings the power of sharing economy into cash logistics and cash distribution. Cash management is a huge problem for the industry, for the retail banks, for the retailers, and also from a consumer point of view. So that's why we have created a location-based matchmaking platform that connects those who wants to withdraw cash in real time with those who wants to deposit cash, which typically could be a local shop owner like a bar or a bakery or a pizzeria or a restaurant. So imagine Uber in the context of cash. That's what Sonect is.
So let's start by going straight at the elephant in the room. You know, a lot of people in fintech say things like cash is dead, we are getting away from cash. And it's really fun to say that. But you've built a platform around the idea that cash isn't dead, that in fact, it's really a major part of our financial lives and that it needs to be easier to get, to deposit. And obviously, what you were working on struck a chord with our audience. So at least some of them still believe in cash. Why do you think cash is so important and can't be ignored by fintech?
Yeah, I think cash is a neglected space in terms of innovation. But if you look at the numbers, 85% of global consumer payment is still done using cash. And we believe there is a long way to go unless we all live in a cashless world. But since there is not much innovation going in, I see a huge opportunity for fintechs to jump into that to reduce the current term, which is called cost of cash management. And that's massive. It's $300 billion annually globally.
I think here's an example where fintech has a bubble that people a lot of times live inside of. If you live inside the fintech bubble, it's really easy to think of cash as being archaic, as being something that we no longer need. But you know, the statistics that you said there obviously point a very different picture. It's something that is still extremely widely used. If there is a cashless future coming, it's certainly a long way off. Are you worried, though, that cash will at some point become less important? You know, does that possibility undercut some of what you're doing?
Yeah, we definitely have that in mind. I think the trend is going towards something digital. But as I said, the world is perhaps not ready for that yet. That's why we have three strategic pillars. The first pillar is, of course, to build a network and infrastructure. The second pillar is to grow the user base and adoption. And third pillar is once you have the ecosystem, leverage that and help today's cash users transition into the world of a digital future. So we have various products lined up once we have the ecosystem to be launched, but we want to make sure we have a hand holding of today's cash users into that digital future. So we are the bridge between cash and a digital future.
I love that idea. You know, looking at cash as a way to engage with people now and give yourself that springboard towards something in the future. Clearly, there is a current need for it, and it sounds like you guys are thinking far enough ahead that you'll be able to see, you know, as the situation starts to shift, as we start to move away from cash as a society, however slowly that might actually happen. You know, being in the position that you're at now, I think will set you up well to take advantage of some of the work that you're doing, even if I guess I should say when that reality becomes true. So now, I want to come back to another of the crucial stakeholders in this equation because, you know, on the one hand, it's very easy to imagine this from, you know, an end user who is looking to just acquire cash and making that process easier. But there's another stakeholder here, and that's the merchants, you know, the shops and restaurants that your platform relies on, who have to buy in order to offer this service and to allow you guys to scale up. Can you talk a little bit about that group in particular and kind of what the value proposition is for them?
Sure. So they have three benefits. The first one, of course, we help them reduce their cash from their till. So they have a huge management effort in terms of collecting, reconciling, and bringing the cash back to the bank. Instead, they sign up on our platform. We show them as virtual ATM. And then once they get rid of their cash, we deposit the same amount into their bank account. So we basically simplify their day-to-day job. That's the first one. Second one, every time they hand out cash, they earn commission. So that's a direct revenue generating from their cash recirculation business. And the third and the most important is this brings additional foot traffic to the store, which converts into upselling opportunity and hence additional revenue for the retailers.
I love all three of those. I think that's a really compelling hat trick there. I think the first one is really interesting because, for people who haven't worked in retail, the idea that you have to, at the end of every day, deposit your cash and what that looks like. I worked retail briefly, it feels like a million years ago. And every day we had to walk to the bank and take an envelope full of cash, walk down the street to the bank and deposit that cash. And I think this is something that it's not a massive problem for retail, but the idea you can get away from that and have it as simple as, I have this extra cash, instead of having to go to a bank, I can just have somebody come in and take it and I get paid for it. I think is really cool. I think the other piece that was kind of struck me is, I think a lot of people who've been traveling a lot are in this position. You can't find an ATM. You feel like you have to go into a grocery store or a drugstore, buy, a pack of gum or a Coke or something and try and get some cash back. But as a user in your situation, you don't actually need to buy anything. It's not something you have to go in and purchase anything. You arrange the transaction before you actually get to the store. Is that right?
Yeah, that's one of the USP of our product. So you do not need to purchase anything because this is not like purchase with cash back, which is the standard thing that's out there in the market, which limits you how much you want to withdraw. But in our platform, the limits are different. But the most important there is, in a cashback scenario, you go to a store, ask for $200, and the store might tell you, sorry, I don't have $200. So there is a bit of uncertainty element because as cash is declining, the supply side is no longer guaranteed. Whereas in our platform, we guarantee that transaction. So once you request it, we will help you find a store that has that $200.
I think that's great. So now what are you seeing from this group of retailers, these shops and restaurants in terms of signups and wanting to get involved? Are you finding them to be pretty willing to engage with you?
Yeah, on our platform, it's like a three-sided platform because the retailers, the banks, and the consumers. And so far in our experience, we have seen the retailers do adopt our solutions the quickest because for them, there is no downside because they don't have to pay anything. They only get additional revenue. They have additional foot traffic. So it's only upside for them. And the integration efforts are significantly low, or even you could just start using a mobile device. So the uptick on the retail segment has been phenomenal in our journey so far.
I think that's a really strong sign. One of the things we've seen at Finovate over the years, a lot of companies who have platforms that rely on retailers, they find it very easy to get somebody who's really local to them, the coffee shop or the sandwich shop that their employees are going to all the time, people in kind of the immediate vicinity of their office building where they have a chance to go in and kind of create this personal connection and you bring them on board. And then you kind of struggle to scale beyond that because you don't have time to engage every merchant in the way that you can the coffee shop you go to every day. Right, you just have a different relationship there. So getting over that initial hurdle is something that I think is really crucial. And it's great to hear that you guys are starting to gain traction and that some of that traction is occurring organically without your getting too involved with it. So now I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about one of the underlying pieces of your technology. In the demo, you mentioned that open banking APIs were part of what had allowed you to build this. I love to see open banking lead to new innovations. I think a lot of people who are kind of fans of that technology generally are in that same boat. Can you talk a little bit about how open banking has enabled you to build what you've built?
Yeah, so if we had to deploy this business model on top of MasterCard and Visa scheme, we couldn't have lowered the current price point. But since we are connected with the bank accounts directly via open banking and PSD2 APIs, which is the standard in Europe now, that allows us to create a price point which is significantly lower than a cashback transactions. And that helped us shape this whole business model around that.
I think that's basically exactly the point of open banking, right? It allows people to find these areas where you can do something more efficiently, do something for a lower price, and find these areas where there are opportunities like that to take advantage of. And so for people in Europe who are really comfortable with open banking, maybe that's an overstatement, but at least who know about it, talk about it more, you start to see more of those opportunities. In the United States, where we don't really talk about it as much, I think that's a side of it that people don't really see, but there are a lot of opportunities that come with it. So I always like to highlight that when I can. All right, so bringing us home here, what's the next step for Sonect? What do you think is going to take you forward from here?
So we're in an expansion mode right now. We are expanding our business in 4 to 5 markets here in Europe this year, but as well as we are launching in Mexico. But our journey is just at the beginning. I want to scale this platform across the world, and that's our global ambition.
And one of the things in the demo that I thought was really interesting, and again, if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out, finovate.com/videos, and find Sonect's demo. You can see what I'm talking about. But one of the really interesting pieces of that 7 minutes you had was you actually had a pizza delivery guy come on stage and deliver a pizza and also deliver cash at the same time. You don't even have to go into the physical store. You can have the cash come to you. Are you seeing an uptick with that service because a lot of people are confined to their homes right now? I mean, you and I are both housebound at the moment, talking to each other from our home offices. Like, are you seeing this become a more popular component of it, given everything that's going on?
Yeah, so that's what we're currently, pushing more on our side as well. People are in home, locked down, but they still need cash. And we want to be the cash provider to them. We bring the ATM directly to your house.
I love that idea. And again, it was a really fun part of the demo to see that happen. It's one of those things which you almost don't believe can be real until you start to learn more about the underlying technology and how you can do that securely, how you can make that work for everybody. And I guess at some point you do have to trust the delivery guy. But you guys have systems in place on that side of things as well. So it's really interesting. And again, I would encourage anybody to check out that video. Well, there we are. That is the end of our time for this one. Thank you again, Sandipan, for joining me, and congrats again on winning Best of Show at Finovate Europe 2020.
Thanks a lot, Greg. Really appreciate it.
The Finovate podcast is produced by Informa Connect in association with Provoke.fm Media. Check out Finovate.com for information on Finovate's upcoming shows and to learn how you can get involved. The discount code Finovate Podcast will save you 20% on tickets to all of our events. And you can email us at info@finovate.com for information on sponsoring, speaking, or demoing. Thanks for listening.